And into that gap, where there wasn't a police force, the American, particularly because of the Sunni Triangle, but also the British forces had to go. Did you have any sense of the way that issues of detainees, interrogation and so on were being handled at the time?
Not in detail, because there were no British in that particular system. The prison system was run by the American military primarily in the American area. I can't speak for MND Southeast. They must have had some detention facilities, but I regard that as separate from the question you're asking.
Yes.
I had no input into those arrangements. If Ambassador Bremer had an input into them, because they were being run by the US military and he didn't have direct responsibility for them, I was not brought into those discussions. We did have some concerns that too many detainees were being held without being processed through the courts. This was something which Anne Clwyd, for instance, as the Prime Minister's Special Envoy for Humanitarian Human Rights Affairs, was concerned with. We would raise those concerns with Bremer and with General Sanchez, the American commander on the ground, to see if more people could be put through the courts so that innocent people were not held for longer than necessary. We only had a limited amount of success in that area. But we didn't have day-to-day sight of what was going on.
Now, I mean, the revelations about Abu Ghraib came after you had left Baghdad, but we heard last week that the military, at least, were aware that some awful things had been going on there and that this was likely to come out. Were you made aware of this sort of time bomb of sort of an imminent media disaster, as well as for very good reasons, in terms of the fact this was not the way that we were supposed to be behaving?
As it happened, I was not made aware for two reasons. One, the International Committee of the Red Cross did not send me a copy of their report, even though the UK was co-responsible in Iraq. They sent it to the administrator only. And secondly, he did not pass a copy of the report over to me, which perhaps partly answers your earlier question about responsibility for these areas. Because I understood or was told by my own legal advisor that there might be questions about the UK's responsibility for detention facilities in MND Southeast, I got my legal advisor to purloin a copy of the report from his contacts in the CPA, go through it, it was actually while I was away on a visit elsewhere, and check what was relevant for British concerns and make sure that those parts were reported back to London and to the Ministry of Defence, which he did. He did not go through the rest of the report or give me any other indication that there were general questions here about the overall administration of Iraq that might arise, and so I missed an opportunity to focus on that.
And the senior British officers didn't convey this to you either? Because
No, they did not.
So you were not able to give London any warning that this issue was likely to blow up at some time?
I do not know whether London otherwise got a full copy of the report. I think we sent them the parts of the report that affected British responsibility. You would have to ask other people whether they saw the full report. But when Abu Ghraib, the issue became widely public, that was a surprise and a shock to me.
And can I just ask you a bit more on the civil-military relationship? You've given an indication that at least as you started, that there was very little prospect of extra American forces being brought in. We've also heard from military officers, our military officers, a sense of surprise at the shift in strategy in November 2004, in the sense as they thought they were, so November 2003, as they thought they were getting on top of things, that all of a sudden the United States has gone off in a different direction. And we've also heard from Sir Hilary Synod that he felt that they were making progress with the CPA in the South in terms of what he was doing. But again, the sudden change in strategy made his work less interesting, shall we say, than it had been before. Did you get a sense of the effects of the change in strategy in November as likely to have these sorts of consequences, sort of losing some of the momentum that had been built up?
That description doesn't sound accurate to me. It wasn't that there was a change of strategy, that there was some turning point in November. The security situation was gradually getting worse. We expected there to be a huge wave of incidents during the month of Ramadan, which that year was most of October, I think September into the end of October, which didn't happen except in one or two areas. There were two things around November which you may be referring to. One was a decision by Ambassador Bremer that he wouldn't delegate responsibility to the military and civilian governorate administrators, nor would he give them the amount of money that they were asking for to try and deal with their local situation more effectively, as they knew General Petraeus had been doing in Mosul in the earlier stages. And there's quite a story to this. The CPA had occasional meetings of their regional coordinators and their regional military commanders in Baghdad to look at the whole situation in Iraq. Ambassador Bremer ran those meetings very top-down, and there was some dissatisfaction from the regional commanders and the regional administrators that they were not being allowed to do the things that they thought would be most effective in their areas, but they didn't get the authority of the administrator to do their own thing. Major General David Petraeus, as he was then, tended to do his own thing on the ground to the greatest degree possible, and showed how an intelligent, independent general in his own region could produce an effect in the Mosul region that was positive, whereas others were more forceful in their military approach and less resourceful in finding money to feed into the local community. And there was a sense of dissatisfaction in that whole area. I don't think there was a strategic change in November, but there were adjustments to tactics, and there were failures of the administrator to accept the wise advice of his regional commanders to do things rather differently, which I regarded as a pity, but that's the way I would describe it.
I was also thinking just of